everyone. Thanks so much for joining us in studio today, where we have Bill Pullman. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Such a pleasure to have you here. First of all, you have been in so many movies. You have this amazing career spanning decades. We've got Spaceballs. We've got A League of Their Own. Independence Day. What do people mostly recognize you from whenever you get recognized?
Well, sometimes it's the most recent thing, and sometimes it's something that was old. And then some people I can almost sometimes spot when they're coming up, and I think, oh, and they'll say something like Casper. And, so there's
that's a good one.
Grab bag, yeah. Carrie Coon, I worked with on the center. She was saying how Casper was a coming of age story for a girl, because her love of Casper, when he's an ideal ghosty thing and then he becomes a real thing, and that was why she remembered the movie.
So let's go back a little bit to whenever you were just sort of starting out. I mean, like I said, I can't have you in this chair and not talk about this decades-long career that you've had. So you started off, you went to college for theater, correct? And then you taught theater for a while, is that right?
Yes, yeah. So I guess that would count as a late bloomer if you were thinking that it was eventually, because I was 33 by the time I was in the first movie that I was in. So I'd done a lot of different things before that, and but I was interested in theater. I started out in a building instruction program, and I was restless and looking for a lot of things. And I got in a play, and then went to. And the guy said, "You ought to do this." And at that point, I was very intrigued by making theater. So I had a graduate degree in directing. So I was acting, but I was always directing as well. And I thought that that was going to be a good life, to keep pursuing. And then I was in Montana doing it, and I was teaching at Montana State University, and I realized I needed to go and try to into the professional pond and see how I could swim. Then I was in a play in New York that got some reviews and things, so I could get to a better agency. And then this job came up to do a play in L.A., and that I could maybe, once I was out in L.A., I could test the waters with some film and TV out there. And that's when I got cast in Ruthless People. Movie.
So from Ruthless People, from there, it just seems like you kind of were taking off, and which is great. You got to work with so many directors, especially over the years. Was there ever a role where you felt a little out of your comfort zone? You're such a likable person to watch and a likable actor to watch. Did you ever have any role that you were maybe hesitant to take on?
I think.
And how did you move past that?
Yeah, I've done a lot of different objectionable characters, and so looking to push the boundaries of what maybe once I get established in something, and then I want to introduce some instability to it. So I think I was really happy to be part of some romantic comedy thing, but then I didn't need to keep doing them, and I've always really liked noir movies, and I find that there's a level of humor in them sometimes, and finding those kind of scripts were really intriguing to me.
Well, I guess that's a perfect segue, thank you, into The Sinner, which is this great thriller television show. I think this is the first time that you've done a character, where you've done a show for multiple seasons, correct?
Yes, yeah.
So I have so many questions. The show is great. If you're not watching it, please. Season 1's on Netflix. How did this role come to you, and what were your first thoughts?
Well, it was, I remember getting a letter from Derek Simon's, the showrunner, and they didn't have all the scripts or anything. It just had kind of a summary of kind of a direction of it, but the letter was very directed specifically at things that he had liked about what I had done, and significantly it was a play that I did on Broadway, The Goat. And so very seldom do film people rely on theater things to make their judgments, but I thought it was an important play to me. It was one of those important milestones of my career, and I think the fact that he was intrigued by this person who was had some buried secret, and I think maybe that was what he saw that was good for Ambrose.
There's only one book that the series is based off of.
Yeah.
But the second season, we see your character, you're sort of the through line from the first season to the second season. When did you know that that was happening, where a second season was happening, and that you would be reprising your role?
When we started the first season, there was a period, he was eager to have me in the writer's room and talking about what, I think because Ambrose was, the character of the detective was not that well charted in the German novel. He wasn't as fleshed out as what Derek wanted to do, so I could talk to the writers about a lot of things, and it became a very personal discussion about my own past and what could be tracking similarly, and what it is to have certain kinds of trauma early in life that maybe forms behavior that becomes manifested later, and so I used a lot of my own life. Derek comes out of some Jungian methodologies, and likes to kind of feel like there's a DNA a little bit from your life in characters, and so I end up just kind of describing a lot of my upbringing, my own sense of being, kind of ways in which I felt like I was, I think a life is always an unpeeling of the onion about who you are, looking to kind of get a better grip on your identity, and I had a bit of unpacking to do, and I talked a lot about it in the writer's room, and then he said, I think it's going well, and it seems the numbers are up, and I had never been part of that, like week by week, here's the numbers, and I didn't really want to hear very much of it, but at a certain point he said, it's going well, and that's all I need to know, and that we might do a second season, and then there was a little bit of a downtime while they were looking to see when it start and when they'd hire the next writer's room, and then he called me, he said, I wonder if you're okay with this as a premise for the second season, because we're going to take Ambrose into the belly of the beast. Going to bring him back to where he had his early upbringing, and is the last place that he wants to go back to.
Were you, for the second season as well, were you involved?
Yeah, though, it was quick hits, where it wasn't like micromanaging or anything, but invited in, and had to, I think there was a lot of, because at that point, a lot of scripts hadn't been written, so they were feeling like, and it was really interesting to then, as the scripts, I thought, oh, this is a nice idea, and they're patronizing me. That this is all me just talking to them and in an afternoon, and that will be the end of it, and they'll go off to write what they want to write, and I'm fine with that. It's very nice that I got invited to go in. And then to see the scripts kind of coming out and realizing, oh, they used this, and oh, they used that, and they used this. So it ended up being affirmation that it was time well spent, to deal with it.
The whole cast is incredible. Shall we just start to even talk about Carrie Coon and Tracy Letts?
Yeah.
You were very lucky to get to, because they're married, right?
Yeah, they're married, yeah.
So they are both, Carrie Coon especially, she's a force. Anytime she's on screen, and the two of you together, what was that like for you, working with Carrie? Had you worked with her before?
Never worked with her before. I'd seen her do Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, that she met Tracy on. That was their Steppenwolf production, and but very much comes from a lot of craft. It's not she's always learned her to immerse herself in things, and it's difficult. I think the idea of not knowing the scripts until you just get them, and next week you got to shoot. So you'd have to assimilate a bunch of information about your character that some of it you hadn't known before, or that kind of thing. And I think she was going differently than what she was used to, but she is such a pro, that she adapted to it, and then we'd talk a lot. I think we really decided, well, we'll rely on each other, and with Tracy too. That's how can we make this work, kind of thing. And fortunately Derek's very collaborative, and so he looking to accommodate everybody and keep everybody in the same zone, but also try to listen to what their contributions are. And they're both bright people that are not making decisions out of some kind of insecurity, but making, so we tapped their strengths, and I hope they felt good about it.
I would imagine.
Yeah,
It's done really well. The show is great.
Yeah.
Well, I am curious also about the scripts, because you're getting them week to week for the second season. I mean, I guess the first season, if you want to read the book, you would know the story there. But for the second season, you're getting these scripts week to week. And there's a lot of flashbacks. And it seems like it was shot so perfectly, though, and everything seems very seamless. But what's that like for you as an actor? Whenever how much do you know going into, let's say in episode 2 or 3, you're sitting by a fireplace with Carrie Coon's, is it Vera? Sorry.
Yeah, Vera, yep.
You're sitting by a fireplace with Vera, and then maybe a few episodes later, we go back there, and you have to tap back into that place. What is that like for you as an actor? Do you sort of like the back and forth? Does it keep it fresh for you, or?
Since, like, as you said, I've never done a repeating series before, so I had never gone through this sense of, it takes a certain amount of trust to know that the character isn't going to be suddenly distorted in some way to fit some writer's conceit of where the character goes. And but with that situation where I'm in this cabin in the woods with Vera, Carrie's character, and then it jumps out of that, and I wake up and I don't remember what happened. And there, at that point, there was maybe we'll come back to it. So it wasn't even for sure we'll come back to it. And then, it's looking more and more like we'll have a scene in the cabin, and we actually have the budget for, so it's not just like the story is driving everything. I mean, it has to be configured with, can we schedule it?
The logistics.
And the logistics, and this cabin was very far in the woods, hard to get all the equipment there, and they said, I don't know how much time, we have a day, now it's only half a day, and now we're back to a day, and so we can have a scene. And then the closer and closer we got to it, suddenly we realized, and then there was I could tell with Derek, there was a way that it felt like everything they were coming up with what actually happened between us was a diminishing of something. So they were a little afraid to write it, and they weren't happy with what they were writing. And then at a certain point, they said, no, Derek said, we really have to have this go on between them, and we want to see it. We can't just fake it, do another one. So that script kept evolving right up to that. When I remember we came in on a Sunday because we were going to shoot it on like a Tuesday. We rehearsed it in a room, Carrie and I and the director and Derek, and that's where we suddenly made a lot of input, and it all came together that this is going to be great to shoot, and we know what the stakes are, and we're going to try to go for the big idea.
Yeah. The last thing I want to talk about, though, was, while we still have a little bit more time, is your docuseries, Epic Yellowstone. What can you tell me about that?
This is a project that these two documentary filmmakers from Bozeman had been working on for 4 years.
Wow.
And I've been very much advocate of the Yellowstone Park, and I just think it's it's a really peculiarly American thing. It was the first national park in the world, and 72 is when they first kind of got started competing, but it wasn't until 1915 that they opened it. So at 2015, they had a big party there that I got involved with as some kind of MC for this celebration birthday. But this time I realized it was so unique. It's such a, and then this footage that they showed me was so things I'd never seen before of animal behavior and the grabbing a sense of what that ecosystem is and how valuable it is that we have this untamed part of the country that is preserved, hopefully forever, and that it's almost more wild than it's ever been once the reintroduction of grizzlies and wolves. And then to see this footage of, that takes so much patience and so much to, these filmmakers would be, in the coldest of temperatures or something, there'd be some guide who'd say, I saw the bobcat again. And they'd have to, go back and spend a week trying to get back into a kind of environment where they could actually photograph the same animal that they had shot months before. And
how do you even do that?
I know, it's so,
Let's find this one squirrel.
Yeah.
It's
true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's with 4K cameras and, trying to, and drones and, it's an incrediable achievement, I think. So I think it's going to be a worthwhile watch.
Sounds pretty beautiful, like beautiful footage and like a bit of a challenge to shoot and film. So yeah, I'm curious what that is going to be like whenever it comes out. So that's March 10th. You can see Epic Yellowstone March 10th on Smithsonian Channel. And again, The Sinner, Season 1 on Netflix, Season 2, iTunes. Buy it if you haven't already seen it, and you will keep us posted on Season 3.
Yes.
Okay, because all of the minds need to know. Thank you so much for being here. It was so nice talking to you, and thanks everyone for watching.